Okay, trauma and addiction recovery. I have the blueprint for you. I already did this. I lived this whole thing. We're talking childhood sexual abuse into teenage Hall of Fame alcoholism, all the way into fucking legitimate suicide, jumping off a cliff, full committal attempt weekend plan thing. And then home 3 months, was 175 pounds at one point, flew home at 122, spent 3 weeks in bed detoxing and get my fucking body back to at least some kind of baseline, and then started an entire recovery protocol, or fucking a recovery stumble that lasted 3.5 years. And I sit here now fully on the other side of it, and I have gone back through the entire 3.5 year process and figured out what worked and why it worked there, what to do here, there, blah, blah, blah. I mapped out the whole recovery structure. And then as I mapped my personal structure out, I also am reading all kinds of other books, and I see the same fucking structure all the time. It's the same story, whether it's in religious texts, whether it's in great psychological texts, whether it's in great physiological texts, biology, fucking chemistry, fucking mysticism. It's all the same fucking story. And I have it broken down into a 4-phase trauma recovery and addiction recovery specific lens for you to hear. This is the overview. I'll go in depth each of these things in its own video. This is the general overview of the 4-part trauma and addiction recovery phase fucking thing. The path, the fucking steps in order that you need to follow if you want to get better. Phase 1, crack the perception. What this means, it's your initial awakening moment, the point where you realize enough's enough, or something is revealed to you finally that makes sense. It's a rock bottom moment. It's a gotta change your life moment. It's a come to your knees, see God for the first time moment. Crack the perception. This is how it happens. Bunch of different ways. Introspection, thinking about yourself honestly. Psychedelics, a little controversial, but they do fucking take you straight through the walls of your ego. Rock bottom moment, like I said, people, you hear that story all the time. People hit that rock bottom and they're like, fucking time to turn it around. You know, like, had to take it all the way to the end. Like, now that we're all the way at the bottom, let's finally look up. So there's that. Education, trauma education specifically, addiction education specifically. If you still believe that addictions are chemical addictions, like you are addicted to the substance of ethyl alcohol, you're behind. All addictions are just defense mechanisms of the ego that are trying to protect you from looking at this bigger thing that you deem too scary or too painful to look at. Honesty, paradox, and existential crisis will also get you a crack in that perception. Honesty being, if you are traumatized or you are addicted, you are also lying to yourself, partly out of necessity. So being honest with yourself can help sort of open up those walls. Paradox can be like, me personally, I was athletic, I was good looking, I was smart, come from a great family, upper middle class, you know, perfect on paper. Why did I feel so miserable inside? That's a paradox, right? Like, how can those two things happen? Perfect poster child for like Midwestern suburban life, fucking horrible inside, right? Like, what? That doesn't work. So exploring paradoxes can crack your perception because the ego cannot hold on to paradox very well. And then existential crisis, like, you finally start to ask the big questions. What the fuck am I doing here? What is this pain for? Where did I come from? What's the meaning of all this? You start asking those questions. Again, they're big questions. The ego likes to hold things in boxes and compartmentalize things. So you start asking big enough questions, you start formulating big enough, complex enough answers, the ego doesn't have the power to hold all to that. So a little bit of a crack in the perception there. That's phase 1. You can't skip any of these steps. You can't force your way through any of these. You will know when you're done. That's phase 1. Phase 2, dissolve the ego. Now, if you don't even know what the ego is, if you think that just means being egotistical, you have a lot to learn, and that's good, because that means you have a ton of opportunity to just read the basics and have so much new understanding about stuff maybe you don't get at all. So it's a good thing that you don't know, but you also need to understand that if you don't know, you fucking don't know. So go learn before you ever start to think about anything else. Go learn what the ego is. And the ego simply speaking, is the thing that differentiates you from chaos. It's the thing that identifies with form. It's necessary in your development. When you are born, you're a child, you're pure awareness. It's chaos, it's emotion, it's flow, it's receptivity, it's all these things. As you develop, you need to figure out what your name is. You need to figure out who your parents are, what you like to do, what you don't like to do, who your friends are, what clothes you like, what music you like, all these things that you think are you, right? The sports you play, the shoes you wear. Like, those aren't you. That's just your ego identifying with some sort of form because it needs to attach to things in order to create structure out of chaos. That's the ego. A lot of ways to dissolve the ego. This is not an easy step. None of these are easy steps. None of these are quick. None of these are particularly comfortable either. So shadow work and root cause work, they're sort of the same thing. Essentially, your ego runs in your conscious mind. You have a subconscious mind. It's all the things that you repress. It's all the things you don't want to look at. It's all the things that your ego has discarded because it's deemed them uncivilized or unsafe. It can mean all kinds of things. It can mean your trauma. It can mean emotions, primal emotions like lust and rage that you deem uncivilized in a regular society. So when they come up, you push them down into the subconscious because you know that's not a good thing for a regular society to see all the time. That could be a reason. Root cause work. It's sort of what I was touching on earlier. Addictions aren't chemical addictions. They're a defense response to soothe you or distract you or numb you from something in your subconscious that you're not looking at. What you suppress is what ends up ruling you. Those aren't my words, and that's fact. And it's not debatable. And what you suppress ends up becoming your puppet master, and all that stuff lives in the subconscious. Shadow work and root cause work are the act of going into the subconscious on purpose to sit with, to see, to merge, to bring your conscious mind down to the depths of your shadow and integrate the biggest monsters in your fucking subconscious. Like, just the full weight of all the things that are just you can't deal with. You got to deal with them. And there's ways to do that. That's for another video. So shadow work and root cause work. And we've got meditation and study. Now, meditation comes in huge here. And meditation is fun because it serves multiple different functions at different parts of the 4-phase process. In the dissolve the ego phase, meditation is where you learn that the ego is not all there is. It's what you think you are, but there's a whole lot more behind just the little thing that's the ego. That's what you think you are right now. And so meditation brings you into a state of mind where we anchor around the breath and thoughts, feelings, emotions come up inside your head, and you learn to build the skill of noticing that your attention has been diverted from your breathing. Notice that you have been diverted and you bring it back to the breath. And every time you get better at bringing things back, all of a sudden there's silences that pop up in between the next thing that will pop up to divert your attention. And in those silences, that's presence. That's the present moment. That's full awareness. That's where you want to go. And so the ego needs form. It needs something to identify with, a thought, a feeling, an emotion, anything. But when you sit in stillness, the ego doesn't know what to do. And if you can make that separation and realize there's even a separation there between your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and the thing that actually sees those things, that silence, that space in between, that's where the ego will start to dissolve because your whole being starts to come up. So that's a great way in the dissolve the ego phase to begin to separate yourself from the ego. Now studying is like, you know all these things, but you don't have any words for them. And I didn't either when I started. I didn't know anything about the world of recovery or trauma, or really, I knew a bit of psychology, but not like, I knew basic psychology. And the more I read, the more I would read things and go, holy shit, that's me. Like, I never heard anybody say this, but this like classic psychological text nailed this shit like to the T. So read psychological text, religious text, mystical text, fucking great stories. Like, read all the good stuff and things will start to make sense because you'll start to see things you have no words for explained in words that are perfect because great writers wrote them. Finally, in Dissolve the Ego, we've got suffering and ego death. I love this part, suffering, doing hard shit, like on purpose, voluntary suffering. Like it's the David Goggins, it's the Cameron Haynes, it's the Joe Rogan, it's that group of people, that message, do hard shit. Why? Not because it's cool to do hard things, but because you need to push yourself to such a limit that you get to a point where this voice in your head says, no more, stop, danger, no more. I can't do it. It's too hard. That's your ego. And if you can push past, if you can just endure a little bit, last just a little bit longer, past where that voice says no more, the voice fizzles and you realize the entire time that voice has been working against you. And on the other side of that limit, that voice is fucking everything. And that's presence over there. That's awareness. That's your heart. That's everything. And that voice, that ego voice, is keeping you at a limit because it needs to identify with you not, like, you need to only have so much potential, and the ego has to be able to quantify it exactly. And so when you get to a point that the ego is like, fucking, I don't know, this is it, like blah, 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 move past it. Do hard enough shit where you start to trust yourself to actually move past that voice. And that voice starts to lose its power. And you start to become limitless. Like you could do anything and you just take it. See how far that fucking goes. I mean, I'm not a runner. I ran a marathon. Like, I'm not a runner. And I ran a marathon purely off of like that concept alone, and done many other things that I never thought I would be able to do. Like, doesn't matter, fitness challenges that I never thought I'd be able to do, hard ass shit. And I do it every time, and I never quit because I know that that voice is a liar. It's not a liar because it's trying to lie to me. It's not malevolent. It's just uninformed of the true power of your whole being. So that's dissolve the ego. Third phase, awaken the intuition. Here's what happens when you're born. You're born out of nothing. You come into chaos. You have full flow, creativity, receptivity. You're just a pure awareness. Now, to be able to develop in the world, you have to create an ego. It's a necessary part of development. And that's, again, what's your name? Who's your dad? Blah, 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 all this stuff. Like, it's you identifying with form. You need to develop the ego as you grow up to build structure into the world of chaos. But eventually, and necessarily along the way, you lose touch with the feminine side of things, that pure awareness, the creativity, the flow, the intuition that you had when you were a newborn, that everybody has inside them. You lose touch with that because you get so far in the logos and the thinking and the rationality, and you need that, and the reason and the meaning, but you lose the feeling. And the reason and the meaning and the logic is in the mind, and that's great, but the intuition and the awareness is in the body, and you need both of those things. So awakening the intuition. So we have your nothing, your newborn, kind of feminine, pure awareness here. The masculine starts to creep on up. That's the ego. As the ego ascends, we start to lose touch with the feminine. Then the next step is to awaken the intuition, bring the feminine back up to speed with where you are now at your ego development. Bring it back up to speed. Now, there's many ways to do this. One of them, meditation. Look, meditation becomes the thing that teaches you the separation of the ego's voice and the actual witness that you are. And also, once you get good at that, it teaches you how to respond and gather your intuitive wisdom. And it's the same thing. You find that silence. By this time, you're good enough where those silences stretch for long periods of time. You're comfortable. You've regulated your nervous system into being able to hold on to stillness and to exist holding the line, holding the tension of the present moment, of the full weight of experience. And when you're in that tension, there's no rationality, but body intelligence sends things up. Now you can go in with a question or you can go in with an intention and your body will respond. And it's not your body, it's your heart speaking through your body. It's the truth speaking through your body. It's God speaking through your body. But you need to know how to feel your body to even recognize the signals and feel your body enough and trust your heart enough to even listen without rationalizing the things that your body tells you. It's a knowing, it's not a understanding, it's a knowing. You just know things. You might not understand why you know them, but you just know them to be true because it's the truth. And it's not because you said it, it's because it's the truth. So meditation is the thing that can bring that intuition back up, because once you develop the separation with the ego, now you leave room for the intuition to come up from the depths and that be something that you explore and play around with and get good at. And it's all heart-based, so you don't need guidance. You will guide yourself into the understandings and knowings that you need at this point. So meditation, fantastic for this. The inner voice, everybody has this. You know you have it. You probably don't listen to it. It's the voice that tells you right from wrong. Now, I'm sure you've been here before. I'm sure you've heard this situation before. You're about to do something you know is wrong. Your ego voice, oh, just do it. Justification for behavior, just do it. Your heart says, that ain't right. But it's like way over here. Ego's, blah, 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 the thing's here, blah, blah, but the voice over here behind you is like, you know that ain't right. That inner voice, the voice of your heart, is quiet. It's still. It just talks to you very normally. It doesn't yell at you. It just sort of prompts you. It just exists as an offering. But your ego voice, hey, you know what I mean? So like, the goal is to find that voice. Find the quiet, still voice of your heart. And it sucks because it's so good at not giving you enough. Like it gives you just enough that you know what it wants, but it doesn't give you anything else. And it requires your action, wholehearted action, to adhere to what that heart voice says to even make the truth manifest. And so it takes a lot of work, and it's really, your ego wants to hijack that so bad, and it will be crafty and creative in doing that. But the goal is to find that heart voice, that small inner voice. So that's another way to awaken your intuition. Synchronicity, rhythm, creative output, and myth. Synchronicities. I'm not talking about fucking 11:11 on your microwave fridge. I'm talking about what Master fucking Oogway talks about in Kung Fu Panda, is that there are no accidents. Every time when you get to this phase and you encounter a life event and it's like, wow, what a coincidence. That ain't a fucking coincidence. It's not. It's life unfolding due to your intentional living and your intentional actions. And so just start to pay attention to the coincidences. And if anything, the thing you can take away from this is that the coincidences should confirm your intention. Now, if you feel like your intention is right, but you're not sure, which will happen all the time, let the coincidences be the confirmation. Again, you can't rationalize that. You can't make that make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense, but you know it makes sense. There's a difference. Synchronicities. What else I got? Rhythm. Ego needs like boom, 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 structure, linear, this, that, routine, strict routine, blah, 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 blah. Intuition needs flow. It's the feminine, right? It's the thing that has no container. It's like water. It's like Bruce Lee said, flow, be like water, be uncontainable, right? So that means you're over here and now you're over there, and you're not thinking about what's next. Am I doing this right now for how long, or what? Well, it doesn't matter. You're not thinking. You just move. You move with your heart. You ask questions later. That's flow. That's rhythm. Creative output. Creativity is feminine expression. We're not talking about gender here. The feminine energy is the energy of creation. And when you're creative, you tap into that flow, because the ego puts things in boxes. But you can't take nothing and turn it into something, which is the act of creation, by keeping everything in a box, because this is formless. So how do you fit that in a box to even begin with? You don't. So the ego is not great at being creative, and so you need to do things: writing, reading, music, art, fucking dance, any type of creative expression. Pick one, pick a bunch, do it, and allow it to bring forth that flow, that surrender to creative, true expression. And finally, myth, fucking read. Like I said this in the last phase, this phase too, read. The more you know about the great stories, the hero's journey story, Joseph Campbell, all the great religious texts, they all mirror the same thing. You can read all the great psychological texts. You can read Jung, you can read Nietzsche, you can read Erich Neumann, you can read all this stuff, all these different books, and just start to notice the mythology, the structure, Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, like Eastern mythology, all these things, like map the canons, map the arcs, and start to layer them on top of each other, and you'll realize that Yes, it's too much to make sense in your mind, but your heart knows that the Bible is the same thing as fucking surfs up. You know what I mean? Like, make that make sense in your head. You can't, but your heart knows it's true when you figure out that it's true. Okay, that's the third phase. The last phase is to anchor in presence. Okay, so we have nothing, you're a child, you come out of the feminine, you develop that ego, that's masculine. You get to a point up here, the ego doesn't serve you anymore. That's your trauma response. So you dissolve that ego after you've cracked your perception. Now you try to bring the intuition back up to speed, the feminine back up to speed. That is awakening the intuition. The final phase is to anchor in presence, to bring the two together, to bring intuition and your ego together and be the tension that holds the polarity between the two poles that's constantly moving. It's the yin and yang symbol. It's the same duality symbol you see fucking everywhere. You now have to be that container of the duality. You need to live from an embodied, aligned, your choices and your actions live together, but you also live by your heart. You flow through your heart every moment on the moment. You only do what your heart tells you to do because you know it's leading you true. And then inside of that, you allow your ego to send you the information that it will send you. This, that. What it does is it shows you where your emotions are. It shows you where your sensations are. It shows you where your thoughts are. But you're separate from it. So you can watch it and you can make sure that it's telling you the truth, because it doesn't always tell you the truth. But when it does, that's input, as data. You can use that. And you can use that to craft a better offering to the world, because you have like this thing that's like, it's almost acting for you, but it doesn't actually show up in the real world, but it's acting as if it did. And when you notice it, you can stop what it's acting out from ever hitting the real world, but then take the information from that at the same time. So you can continue to map triggers, continue to map patterns, continue to see what bothers you, what doesn't bother you, continue to realize your fucking scatterbrain thoughts, to realize your emotions, what they're trying to tell you, without them ever hitting the reality, the floor of reality. It stays in your mind. And that's great, because then you can show up in the real world how you want to, how you know you're supposed to from the heart. And so it's flow, it's surrender, it's embodiment, it's alignment. It's all these things. And you bring the two together. And when you get here, you know exactly what I mean. And it's boring life because it's a present life. And a present life doesn't have sensation. It doesn't have that. I've had this happen to me a couple times. I've been confused where I got to a point, everything was the way I wanted it to be always. Things were here, this was here, this situation, this environment, this person, whatever. All these things that I always dreamed of. But I felt nothing. But I didn't feel numb. I just felt nothing. I remember being so confused. I'm like, this is everything I ever wanted. Why don't I feel like this overwhelming sense of joy? Because true presence doesn't feel like anything. Because feelings and sensations are what your ego attaches to. Your ego says, this thing, what I wanted, joy, this is joy, I'm experiencing joy. True presence just is. There's no feeling. And it's a weird thing to realize and to figure out for yourself. And so those are the 4 phases. Crack the perception, dissolve the ego, awaken intuition, anchor in presence. I'll go in depth on all of those in future videos, but that's the general overview on how to recover from trauma and addiction from somebody who already did this shit.